And very good morning to you. This is the Talk of the Town. My guest this morning is the newly appointed Associate Member of the Working Committee of the SJB. That's it. Kusum Wijetilleke. Good morning to you, Kusum, and welcome to the programme.
Good morning, Faraz. Thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
And Mr. Premadasa, is he taking a chance on you?
I hope not. I hope it's not. I hope it's a safe decision.
But you do realise that your appeal has gone up leaps and bounds now that he's given you some appointment, because now you'll be more appealing to the Rajapaksas. They'll be trying to rope you into their side. What do you think? What will you do?
Maybe I'll raise my price, Faraz. No, I think in all seriousness, the culture of crossing over has to stop, because it doesn't happen in many other advanced democracies in the world. It certainly doesn't happen in the kind of systems that we are trying to build. The UK, for instance, you don't have people just crossing over and going over to the other side. And it's part of the reason for that is that we haven't really defined our politics. In the UK, for instance, you have the Conservatives and Labour, and they stand for something, right? In Sri Lanka, these political parties, do they stand for anything? Most of them, not really, right? It's
Well, most of them, if you ask me, quite frankly, they stand for something called the dollar.
Yes,
preferably
exactly.
the US dollar. Talking about dollars and lack of a cohesive, sustainable dollar earning strategy at the moment, it's all well and good the IMF have so-called given this facility, but the hard work of negotiating with the lenders is now underway, I suppose. But in the meantime, do you believe that our president is doing a good job within quotes?
Faraz, I hate to personalize a critique, but the problem is that President Ranil Wickremesinghe makes it very difficult. I mean, he's a very powerful president, even under these constitutional amendments. He's a finance minister, and he's pretty much the face of Sri Lanka's IMF negotiations. So I suppose it's fair to direct some of the ire onto him. Just take his statements in Parliament last week when he talked about the Colombo Stock Exchange, and how if the stock exchange crashes, he'll just shut it down. And he asked the banks, he basically intimated that the banks were putting pressure on him, and then he said, well, maybe the bank should come and run the country. Now this
they might do a better job, but anyway.
Well, on your TV channel, Face the Nation, there was a member of the banking fraternity that basically was, I suppose, sort of saying it without saying it. He was telling the public that there needs to be greater transparency. There was even a statement from the Association of Professional Bankers that called on the government to provide more transparency in these debt restructuring negotiations. So I think it speaks to the sort of high-handed nature of how this process is going about, because the president and the government have sort of negotiated everything with the external creditors and the IMF, and now they're coming to the stakeholders within the country. I think most stakeholders in the country would have preferred if they were sort of spoken to before we started this process, because we're the ones who have to carry the brunt of it.
So basically, what is the president doing? Is he doing the best he can? I mean, is he managing a mismanaged item?
Well, there's a lot of commentary on this, right? So I think what a lot of commentators are saying is that we seem to have gone to the IMF and asked them what they want without really presenting much of an option from our side. Now, part of this might be due to the reason that Ranil Wickremesinghe himself is a fairly dogmatic person. He has a very set framework for economics. So he believes very much in the private sector-led growth model, which is fine. I mean, we all want to make use of the free market and we want to be part of global trade. But I think in this center-right economic policy, sometimes what's lost is the people element. All you're trying to do is to protect the people of Sri Lanka. That should be your primary mandate. It seems that we've given a lot of space for all the other stakeholders except the people. And I think that's where the president has to improve. I mean, I don't see anything related. The tax structure is completely inequitable. I mean, we're basically putting all the burden on the working people. There's no cash transfer, something the IMF was talking about for many years leading up to the collapse, was to engage in cash transfers to strengthen social protections. Now, the IMF is saying these things because they've seen programs in various countries fail over decades simply because there isn't enough public buy-in, simply because the adjustment is too severe and too soon. So that's why they are specifically saying things like cash transfers, social protections, because they want to give their
Cash transfers
program
the people who need...
the people who need it. So
the vulnerable.
They want to give their own program the best chance of success. And the best chance of success is to get public buy-in, is to soften the blow for the people. Instead, I think in Sri Lanka, we're sort of prioritizing all the other facts. So we're prioritizing industry, we're prioritizing the government. We're not really prioritizing the people. And that's, I think, unfortunate because the people have been bearing the brunt of this. You can talk about domestic debt restructuring, but the fact is that before the IMF came in with their regulations, Sri Lanka was already going through an austerity program. I mean, energy costs have doubled, the cost of living up 50-60%. So the Sri Lanka people have already borne the brunt of this collapse.
Indeed. We've had our own domestic debt restructuring, really, haven't we?
That's right, yeah.
So how... what's the inside? What do you... at the SJB, what are you all feeling on the ground amongst the youth of this country?
Well, for us, it's not easy because the youth of this country want relief. Now, the problem is that our whole IMF program depends on fiscal consolidation based on revenue, which means we have to increase taxes. Now, as I said, the tax structure is quite inequitable because it's basically putting all the burden on the working people. And I think that while Sri Lanka has always suffered due to a lack of taxpayers, I think they've put so much emphasis on the working person that it's sort of counterproductive because the economy runs on these very people. You have to have some disposable income to let the economy go. But since we're in an economic contraction, that's not possible either. And you have to understand the economic collapse happened in 2022. Prior to that, we had a central bank bombing, we had the pandemic. So it's not like these problems for people started in 2022. These problems started in 2018, 2019. So we're looking at 2-3 years of economic hardship, and then you're telling people that, well, things are going to get really hard. So you can see why people are a little bit pessimistic.
How confident is the SJB